Hey everybody, it's Mark Verger here, Clark Commando 1983, and it's, my gosh, April 30th, 2024, and it's actually about 4 in the afternoon. So, finally getting back around to doing another turn of my unconditional surrender from GMT Games Replay, or Learn to Play After Action Report. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe, and please comment. Keeps me motivated. So if you've been following along, and I recommend, I've done some videos on training scenarios, and then I have this play test, which is focusing on the campaign game. And we shall see how far I get. But I'm hoping to carry it on for a while. So that being said, you know, from if you watch my other videos, and if you haven't, please do. I go over the rules, go over a little bit of the strategy. So we are in October of 1939. I think this video might take, I'm hoping, no more than about 20-30 minutes at tops. Just because just not a lot's going to happen in October of 1939. And, so let's go. Hopefully you've been watching what's going on. And so the first phase that happens is, of course, the weather phase. And so we're going to go over that, and I'm going to try not to rehash a bunch of stuff from my other videos, and I apologize if this is the first video you've watched, but hopefully it might encourage you to go watch my other videos. So anyway, and for the folks that are following, it won't become too repetitive. So we're going to look here on the weather chart, which you get off of BGG, the current charts. Highly recommend you do that. I said that every video, and I'll probably repeat that. But last turn was September, and it was fair everywhere per the order. So let's see. So October, okay, it's just going to be a straight die roll. There's 3 weather zones. So I'm going to roll 3 dice here. We're going to roll for the cold zone, and we get a 5. And a 5 for the cold zone in October is severe. Okay, well, and I will cover weather effects as they impact the game. So you can't see it, but the north line kind of runs from here north, and then basically covers almost all of Russia. So but anyway, severe weather. And then we're going to go to the mild zone, and we get a 1. Okay, well, I still don't think much is going to happen, but a 1, the mild zone's fair. And then the warm zone, get a 6. And so that's severe. So, yeah. Let's see here. So fair and the mild. Mild covers, let's see what you can see in the video. Is another green dotted line from here up to the cold zone. And then from here down to yellow is the warm zone. And then below the yellow, there actually is some hexes like Libya and Egypt and whatnot that are desert. In the desert, the weather's pretty much always fair. So that, anyway. All right. So that's the weather phase. All right. Declarations of war. So Germany, the Allies currently, because of the Nazi-Soviet pact, is still in effect, and even though appeasement's lifted, the Allies cannot declare war, and neither can the Soviet Union. And Germany is not in a position, and I don't need to declare war on anybody, so we're skipping that. Economy phase is pretty simple. On an off-board nationality track, which I've shown in my other videos. Excuse me, it's pretty simple. You take that was Cancer speaking, number of factories, and then like Germany times 2, so they have 13. There's no strategic warfare yet, so that being said, there's no losses. And we're going to double check the rules when we get to that, but 13, in fact, I know there's no strategic warfare because we haven't attacked in the West yet. So, but 13 factors times 2 is 26 production points. And you may remember or may not, production points, you spend them or lose them. It's not going to be a lot to spend them on in this turn. But, so France has 8 factories, and they're times 2, so they'll have 16. And the British are at 9, so they'll be at 18. 9 times 2 is 18. And the Soviets have 9, so they will be at 18. All right. So that's what you do in the economic phase. You just figure out how many production points you got. And there's no minor countries to do right now, so. All right, there's no strategic warfare phase. So we're going to skip that, and that won't be in effect till until the attack in the West is triggered or a Mediterranean crisis, and neither one of those have been triggered yet. And those are events, conditional events. So we go to the operations phase. So if you remember, excuse me, excuse my goodness. Oh, I'm sorry, strategic movement phase first. We're going to go ahead and do that. So strategic warfare, you may or may not remember, is a marker. So you can do 1 unit. No overseas movements allowed, but you are allowed to do along rail lines and stuff. Pick up an air unit or a land unit, and doesn't cost production. So I'll go ahead, I'm going to just strategic move. Let's see, it'll probably save me. It's most efficient to do a Panzer Army. So we'll pick up the first Panzer Army here, put it under the strategic move. And basically you can reposition it. We'll go ahead and reposition it over here on the Western Front, because that's eventually where we're going to strike, right? So let's get ready. Now we do that because just to get in the habit, it actually doesn't cost you any production points to activate the army. At this point, you have plenty, but also you get the factor of unlimited movement. So that being said, now you got to remember for the conditional events, we have to keep 2 Soviet air units basically on the Western Front and 3 field armies. So I think the only other thing the Axis are going to do for this, now we're going to do an operational, so the Axis go, and the Allies and the Soviets have no strategic movement. They have a marker, but they really don't have anything they need to do with it. So then we go to operations, so Axis are first. So they're going to spend 2 production points so that we can activate this Panzer Army in Warsaw, and we're going to start moving it. We're going to go, let's look, along the rail lines. I think it's just 1 movement point, and they have 10. In fact, I know that's what it is. So we'll be able to move 10 hexes only, but hey, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. start moving east with that. And we got to keep our 3 armies that we have on the Eastern Front. So we're going to go ahead and spend 3 production points. They're 1 each. Technically, you would activate 1 army at a time. But for expediency, I'm going to do all 3. And we will... We're going to move this one up to Warsaw. Not quite sure why, but later on we can move it up to the front. And keep it in Warsaw for now. I'm going to take this one and go. I have 8 movement points. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll go over here and start planting some flowers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cost an extra 1 to cross the river. And so that's those 3. We spent 3 production points. And let's see. Air flotillas don't cost, I don't think they cost production to move. I think I would know this if I played this game for so much. And yeah, it just costs them sorties. They actually spend their production on the flip side when they try to, which you'll see when we get to the replacement phase. Get rid of sorties. So we'll go ahead and give this guy a sortie. He'll do a rebase mission. Has to stay on the Eastern Front. So we might as well move it to here. And they can move 10. And then we'll take this air unit. And for now, move him up to the border. I flipped his sortie over to 2. We got that done. And then just to maximize everything, might as well start. We'll spend another production point. And we'll move this German army. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And remember, leg armies have 8 movement. So that's about all the operations for the Axis. So now we go to the Western Allies. Honestly, they're pretty well, I think, situated. Oh, no, they're not. No, they're not. The French, I think, are going to spend a production point and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excuse me, my God, I'm sorry about that, guys. And this costs 2 movement point or 2 production points for the British because it's motorized. Even though we're just going to move up a whole hex, but it is what it is. All right. Okay. And then the Soviets, let's see. We're not gonna, well, we could, I suppose, start moving up, but we got, honestly, plenty of time. So we do control Eastern Poland, but I don't, well, I guess it couldn't hurt. Maybe we should have done a strategic move with the Soviets. I think we will. We take a strategic move marker. And I'll tell you why, just because, the game is wide open and the Axis theoretically could declare war anytime they want. And so I probably, if I was playing the Soviets, use a strategic move just to get in the habit to move that army from here to Brest. Doesn't cost any production. I should have done that in the strategic movement phase. Just FYI. I don't own Bessarabia yet. I just own Eastern Poland. So let's see. I don't want to move my armies up. I don't want to start that process. I don't think so. I'm just going to stay there. I got a lot of time. So, all right. So that is my operations. And you do, oh, by the way, a supply check. So supply, honestly, is pretty simple. 2 hexes to a communication line, the railroads, and then back to a city in your home country. For this British unit here, they need to expend a sortie, so this convoy will go up to 3 sorties because they have a land unit there. So we'll mark that guy with 3 sorties. Okay, yeah, sorry, we're going to get to the political thing in a minute. So remember, I did find in the rules, and I screwed this up on my training videos, garrisons on islands like Malta and then Gibraltar that are under a fort, and naval units, which I didn't screw up, but the land unit part are always in supply. But over here in Egypt, they have the British have a convoy in the Suez, so to provide supply, that has to do a sortie because it has 1 unit, 1 land unit in Alexander. So, and none of these units can actually move yet because of the no Mediterranean crisis yet, which is a conditional event. And one thing that's really kind of cool about the game is you don't have to memorize the conditional events or policies, but you do want to be aware that they're there, and that way if you want to, you can check them, but be aware of what the factors are. All right, so that we did that. Everybody did their supply check. Everybody's in supply. Now you do no supply phase. Now this is not impactful here, but this is where you would actually mark this is where if you had a unit that had gone no supply, you would reduce it or eliminate it. And then a phasing unsupplied ground unit or phasing supplied or unsupplied air or naval unit may be eliminated. You can do voluntary eliminations, but the wording's really key there. And it's in the rule: a phasing unsupplied ground unit or a phasing supplied or unsupplied air or naval unit may be eliminated. And you can get situations where the air units are cut off from supply, so they can't rebase or anything. And so the only way you're going to be able to, really bring them back into play is to voluntarily eliminate them, which they'll go to an eliminated box, which basically causes a turn delay before you can rebuild them. And when you rebuild the air or naval unit and they have a production cost, they come on with 4 sorties. So they actually have a production cost, and then over time to get rid of those sorties. And I'm going to go over that again here in just a second. So that would be the no supply phase, but it doesn't impact anything here. All right. So that being said, now we go to the replacement phase. So first the axis. Now what the replacement phase is if you had, say, some half-strength land units, you can spend production points to build them up to full strength. You want to get rid of sorties on your convoys or your naval units or your air units. They have different costs, and we're going to do that. And you can only get rid of 2 sorties a turn. So it takes a little bit of time because if you remember, you can do, air and naval can get up to 6 sorties before they can't do anything. And those have different effects, which I'll go over when we hit those in the rules. But for right now, on your chart, and it's Rule 9, if you wanted to read the rule for production. So let's see here. To turn over, remove 2 sorties from a fighter or convoy unit. Costs 3 production points. So, and you can remove up to 2 sorties for that 3 production points. Oh, and by the way, at the end of the operation phase, the strategic warfare markers come off and go back in the event box. There's no delay. You basically get those back every turn. So let me fix that. And my cancer, it's really hard for me to stand up. That's the one. God, my legs are just so bad. From the chemo. Anyways, all right. So we want, we've flown our Germans, and this guy has 2 sorties, so that's 3 production points. Remember, you can't save production points, and we have plenty, so it's 3. Remove 2 sorties there, and now these guys also another 3, so that's 6. So with the movement we did and everything, I'm going to spend 6. So we went from 26, we're down to 14 now, which is still plenty. But you'll see we have some mobilizations coming up, which we're not there yet. And there's some diplomacy coming up, which is going to be fun. So that's the kind of fun little part of the game. But right now we're doing replacements. And for the Allies, I'm just not going to spend it in the Suez yet. I could because I have plenty. But I am going to spend it here. Now this guy has 3 sorties on it, this convoy, but I only can fix 2. So he's still going to have 1. And that costs 3 because it's a convoy unit. So the British are going to spend 3 production points, and that's their first 3. So they're going from 18 down to 15. And I think that's it for replacements. And that's rule 9 is the, I'm sorry, that was production. Replacements are rule 8. So rule 8 is where you want to look. Upgrade. So there's currently no units to upgrade. There are units that will come on that you can go through, and that's rule 8.2. You can upgrade them, and we'll cover that eventually when we get some. Now mobilization. So this is where you spend production points to build units. And of course, you always go, the Axis go first. So they have 2 armies and a garrison to mobilize in their mobilization box. And let's go see what the cost is. Mobilization for the Axis, not mobile. So you can only do 1 step at a time, and I'll go over the exception for the Soviets when I get to them. So they have a leg ground unit, which includes their garrisons. And so they have 3 here. So we're going to spend 3 production points. So now I'm down to 11 for the Axis, which is still plenty, but you can see with not a lot happening, they kind of go through it pretty quick. So we're going to need, let's see, you can put these in cities in your home country. And eventually we're going to need garrisons all over the place. So we're going to start this one because we're going to start maybe garrisoning some of these cities in Poland. But just for GPs, we're going to put a garrison in Breslau here. And then these 2 field armies that I mobilized, we're going to put one, and remember these are at half strength because you can only do 1 step per turn. We're going to do 1 in Dusseldorf, and we will go ahead and do 1 in Bremen just because we know we're going to eventually be heading west, right? So let's go ahead and do that. The Western Allies have nothing to mobilize. They're next. And then the Soviets, now here's where the Soviets get, they get to spend their 1 production point, and they get to bring their leg unit in at full strength. So it's one of the ways it shows kind of the cheaper manpower of the Soviets. So they only have 1 field army here. And I think we're going to stick that in, let's see here. Now remember, everybody else half strength, they get to place at full strength. And Eastern Poland has now become, when they're seated, become part of the Soviet Union, which actually, I think I should have bumped their factory count up one, shouldn't I? So they should be at 14, no, 10, sorry, not 9, okay. Because they started with, I'm going to have to check that. I'll have to check and I'll get back to you. But yeah, they started with 9, but they just got bumped to 10. So, this field army though, let's go ahead and, we're going to eventually need it. Let's just build it in Lvov. Okay? And that's legal because it's part of Eastern Poland. And when they get a ceded border marker, they become part of the Soviet Union. All right, so we're 25 minutes in. Not a lot going on. But I'm trying to explain everything as I go. So now diplomacy. So I'm going to cover this. This is kind of fun. So the Axis get to go first. So if you remember, you have to spend 5 production points. I have 11 left. So we're going to spend that. So now we're down to 6. And, that'll actually be it. But you can see you can actually burn through your production pretty quickly. So, and unlike most games, except for when you get seeded border areas that have a factory, you don't get you don't get bumps by capturing factories or anything. There are ways to get bumps in the game, but it's mainly through events and stuff. So, but that being said, so when you spend 5 and you're allowed to look in the cup, and it's been a little bit, so I'm going to look in the cup, but you can spend 5 to either go to the diplomacy holding box, which right now there's a political failure and a political success marker. You could pick one of those. And if there's any no event markers, you have to throw that plus a no event into the cup. You can also add a pro-faction marker, which look like these, and each faction has them. There you go. Spend 5 to throw that in the cup. Or you can spend 5 to draw. So I'm thinking I'm going to draw, but let's see what we got in here. We still have, you start with 3, 4, 5. We have 6 no events, which are in the cup, which obviously if you draw that, nothing happens. 2 political success and a pro-axis. So if we draw one of those, that's something good. Basically, you can try to ally. Got 2 area C's, which are good if they draw those for the Soviets, because they actually, I'm going to have to look that up. I think even if the Germans draw it, they get to implement it, which means they could do another ceded border. And then the last one was a Western Allied chip. So I spent my 5, and I'm going to just draw. So let's see what happens here. So I draw, I mixed them up, and I got an area seized. So that's going to go in the holding box here, diplomacy cup marker. We're going to go ahead and look up area seized, because like I said, it's relatively easy to look stuff up. And the rule book that you're going to print off from the GMT website, which are the latest rules, dated 8/31/2020. Sylvester, the designer, is pretty good about updating this stuff. So, and this is what he recommended I use, so that's what I did. So area C's, we drew that. So let's see what happens. So rule 14.2, this represents USSR military or politically seizing a disputed area. Which phasing, so regardless of who pulled it, the marker, the Soviets can do one of the following. Must do the following. Select a country with the USSR disputed area that has not been ceded to the USSR and is either neutral or an active Western country with no Axis unit in it. All right. Which has not been ceded and is neither neutral, so neither one of those are the case. So what we do is in the conditional event, so we're going to, as the Soviets, let's go ahead and pick, we're going to pick Lithuania because we don't want the Axis trying to grab that politically. So their markers are up here. Let's see, we got Bessarabia, Estonia, Latvia. Of course, it's always going to be the last one, Lithuania. So that's on their box in the conditional events. So move that to the seated marker. Their national will goes up by 2. They're also going to get to mobilize an army, I believe. Let's see here. It's going to go, let's see. Increase national will by 2. And put it in the eliminated box. And so remember, this is how the Soviets are going to slowly grow their stuff too. Okay, so the country ceases to exist because it was Estonia, Lithuania or Latvia. Okay. Pro-faction is neutral and not Estonia. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna bump the factory count up by 1, also because Lithuania becomes part of the Soviet Union. So now we're up to 11 factories. Okay. And that was the Axis pull. So now we go to the Western Allies. England has to decide what they're going to do. And they want to throw I have no idea, honestly, if it's a good idea or not. But we're going to throw the political failure. It could, oh my goodness. Back in the cup for 5 production points. That's what they do. No idea if that's a good idea or not. But doing that to try to slow the Axis down, I guess, I could have drawn or done something else. And then the Soviets will spend 5, and they have plenty. They have 17, so go down to 12. And they want to get those areas seized markers. So they're going to take the one that just got pulled and throw that back in the cup. And that's their 5. So there's a victory check phase, but I can tell you right now, nobody's won the game yet. In the end of turn phase, you advance the turn marker. So I'm going to advance that and make a note. And there's a airdrop for the Germans in November 39. So I'll make a note. Next video will be at least doing the November turn. This airdrop marker goes in the events for the Soviets, the Germans. Making a note here to start the November turn. I'm about to go jump on the internet. I want to go do Mo's game table, which is a great channel. He's got a show here coming up. So, and then you take anybody in the eliminated box. And the Soviets are the only ones that have an army there, and that gets moved to the mobilization box. And that ends the September 1939 turn, or October 1939. So, not a lot happened. I may do another video, or I may do a conglomerate, or I combine a couple turns and then do a video kind of like a report out, so we can get a little closer to the action. You know, the odds of me attacking in the West right now, I'm not really in a position to do it, and the weather's probably going to be crappy. Um, so, probably not a lot of choice of that happening. Uh, you know, politically, we'll see what happens coming up. I mean, try to, you know, I seized Lithuania and now in Eastern Poland, so I kind of technically still have Bessarabia, the Finnish borderlands, Estonia, and Latvia to go after. You may say, why bother going after them? Well, you know, you get factories and it gives you a little more space in Russia for theoretically the potential German or Axis attack in the East, assuming that's what they do. All right, well, hey, thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you soon again. All right, thanks, everybody. Bye.